drum. Things come. Yay. Hey guys, welcome to our first video on our channel. Today we're going to be talking about feminism, but more about black feminism. It will be split into 3 videos just to make it short and sweet. So let's get started. So my name's Rochelle, I'm 22 years old and I'm a graphic student.
My name's Cheryl, I'm 23 and I'm a teaching assistant.
My name's Shakilia and I'm a production assistant part-time.
The first topic that we're going to be talking about is what is the difference between mainstream feminism and black feminism. You may wonder, what is the actual definition about feminism? Feminism is the theory of the political, economic and social equality of the sexes, and it's an organised activity on behalf of women's rights and interests. So with black feminism, it mainly focuses on the struggles that black women face, whereas mainstream feminism ignores cultural issues. Do you agree?
So are we talking about the difference between mainstream feminism and black feminism?
Yeah.
Specifically? Yeah, I'd say the main difference between mainstream feminism and black feminism is the focus on cultural and racial issues that maybe white feminists and maybe other feminists of other races wouldn't understand. Kind of like a dual focus. Mm-hmm. So it focuses on the struggles of women, but also focuses on the racial struggles that we also face at the same time, like simultaneously looking at race and simultaneously looking at the struggles of being a woman.
Mainstream feminism, it focuses on bringing up about equality between women and men. But I think what separates mainstream feminism and black feminism is that mainstream feminism kind of disregards certain issues in life that may affect a black woman. So for example, women, they want to see a difference in pay gap between men and women.
Mainstream feminism will hold issues for them. For them, that's the most highest importance. The fact that there's a pay gap between men and women, that's important. But whereas a black feminist will look at it and say, well, actually, the issue isn't the fact that there's a pay gap between men and women, but the issue is the fact that there's no black people in particular jobs. Like, we're not even experiencing this pay gap because we're not even in the higher paid jobs. Mm-hmm. And that's problematic, and that for a black feminist would be a priority. The fact that there's not even black people in these jobs to be having an issue with the pay gap. Whereas white feminists or feminists of other races will see the pay gap as the only issue and the primary issue, and the thing that needs to be focused on. Mainstream feminism neglects maybe the needs of black women, or there isn't really a focus on the needs of black women. It causes like maybe an isolation for black feminists, which is problematic. I think that's where the differences between the two come in.
Okay, so would you say feminism is more beneficial towards white women?
Feminism, or mainstream feminism, is more tailored to the needs of a white woman compared to the needs of a black woman. I feel like feminism disregards or it neglects the needs of black women in general, in a whole, and that's why there is a separation, and that's why there is black feminism or womenism, however you want to put it, or to get jobs, the experience of not having that equal pay gap between a man and a woman, because they're not even getting the position to get these jobs or attaining these jobs.
And I can draw one of my examples actually when you say that.
Mm-hmm.
So I recently went to an interview. It was an NHS interview, and I was actually asked a question about equality and diversity, which I thought was strange because being a black woman, I would answer the question differently to the way my white counterparts would answer the question. And it was when faced with when faced with discrimination, how would you deal with it?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to really think long and hard about how I answered the question, and I basically answered it, and I said that it would be dependent on the situation and the context of the discrimination. So who I'm experiencing discrimination from. The position was, let me give you some context, the position was for an assistant psychologist post. I said it would be dependent who I'm receiving discrimination from. Would it be from a patient? Would it be from colleagues? If it was from colleagues, then that's something that I need to address with my colleagues, but I'd be more likely to address it with the person that was above me, because I would want to avoid confrontation.
Yeah.
And I gave that answer because I don't ever want to be in a situation where I adhere to the stereotype that women are aggressive, or women want to fight. And in the workplace, I'll avoid confrontation, even if it is discrimination. I'll avoid it. And I was told that the answer was incorrect, because the right answer would be to say discrimination is unacceptable in any way, shape or form. That was the answer they were looking for. But they didn't really consider that I would answer the question differently to the way someone white would answer it. I feel like someone white would sit in the interview room, hear a question about discrimination, and immediately say discrimination isn't acceptable because they're white and they don't want to be seen as racist. So they're more likely to say, no, it's not acceptable.
So sorry, just to interrupt you. So if you was to answer it in their correct way, do you still feel like it still wouldn't change the answer? Like it still be...
But I feel like if I was to answer it in the way that they expected me to, it's not true to myself. That's not my truth. As a black woman, if I'm to face discrimination in the workplace, I am going to deal with it differently to the way someone white is to deal with it. And to be fair, I don't feel like that's a fair interview question. Consider that your applicants or the candidates for that interview, they're going to be from different racial backgrounds. We're all going to answer it differently. My truth, in the past, I've had racial discrimination in the workplace, and the way I've dealt with it is I've gone straight to the person above me, and it's been dealt with through HR and through people above me. And I avoid confrontation because I don't want to get into a fight at work. I don't want to be labelled the angry black girl. I don't want to fall into that trap. So I avoid it, and that's just my truth, because that's just what I've experienced. I've experienced confrontational situations because of race in the past, and if I can avoid it, then I will. And I just feel like that's something they completely disregarded and didn't take into consideration. I feel like the workplace is a good example of how feminism doesn't really tackle that issue. There's big strides on closing the pay gap, but there isn't big strides in making sure that black females can receive equal opportunities as white females. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, well, he's summarising that up. I'd say black women face a lot of barriers that white women won't have to. So mainstream feminism is completely different to black feminism. So I feel like it's a whole different movement. But also, us as black women, we're seen as aggressive when we're very vocal about our struggles. But when you look at our struggles, there's a reason as to why we're aggressive. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Drawing on what you said about us being excluded from feminism, I don't think it's solely feminism we're excluded from. I think we're a very isolated group of society, and I feel like society collectively has excluded us. Not just white women, not just Asian women, not just Mexican women, not just like South American women, not just white men, not just Asian men, not just black men. Everyone together has excluded us. And when I think about society and like a racial hierarchy, I really see us at the bottom. Again, what you were saying about us being seen as aggressive, I feel like it's because we're at the bottom of this hierarchy. There's like a kind of anger, but I don't feel like it's an anger like an aggressive anger.
Like how
I think it's an anger as in like a frustrated anger, like we're just tired and
no
you know, yeah, and I just feel like everything like we do, like we have to work 10 times harder, so of course we're going to be frustrated. I'm gonna have to work 10 times harder than a white man to get the same job that he'll probably get. I even have to work 10 times harder than, maybe not 10 times harder, maybe like 5 times harder than a black brother, but because he's a man, he's probably given an upper hand over me. There's more frustration. So people label us as angry, but it's with reason. And I think so in society and culture as well, I've had to grow up and watch my mum be a strong and independent black woman, and I've watched my grandma be a strong independent black woman, and that's definitely something I've also taken on myself. Like, I'm very used to being independent, and I feel like that need to be self-sufficient and independent can be interpreted differently by people that look on. They're like, oh, why do you feel like you don't need anyone? Why do you feel like you need to be independent, kind of thing. I feel like it's very misunderstood, really.
So recently I read a book, and it's called This Will Be My Undoing by Morgan Jerkins' book. She had a lot of good quotes in there about feminism, and she talks in this quote, she says, "In my experiences, white people are the only people who purport to advance equality through the erasure or rejection of marginalised people's identities, which signals to me that they have fooled themselves into believing that they are race. This belief is false because it's based on the idea that whiteness is the human standard, and that furthermore, by virtue of them being white, they are the attributed. I don't know how to say that. And that furthermore, by virtue of them being white, they are the arbiters of
like arbitrary. I think that's where the word comes from. Arbitrary means like the first. Arbitrary is like the first, but I don't know how that word is. That word comes from arbitrary, so I'm not too sure how you pronounce it.
So this belief is false because it's based on the idea that whiteness is the human standard, and that furthermore, by virtue of them being white, they are the arbiters of humanity. I feel like this is such a powerful quote because a lot of white people, they will never be able to put themselves in our shoes and deal with it how we deal with it.
She's just basically saying that white people see themselves as unraised. So because they see themselves as unraised, that's a problem. Exactly.
That whiteness is the standard.
Yeah.
That's it. It's normal.
And
if you being black is just different, but being white is a normal race.
And therefore
any other thing after white is different.
That's the case, then how can they ever see the issues that we see because they see themselves as unraised?
I agree. I 100% agree with what she says. That's not the way to see things. It's so forced because that's problematic as well. Because if you are a white person and you believe that you're being white is just the normal standard of life, like you don't see any other race as something that needs to be taken account of. Like, for example, the whole issue of feminism right now. So if your standard of your way of living is just a normal standard, you're not taking into account any other issue that somebody of your of a different race is going through. The whole idea of whiteness being a normal standard in society is problematic, and it's harmful towards people of other races, especially black people, because that means they're disregarding any issues that they may be facing. They're not taking into account any other issues that black people are facing, because they just see whiteness as something that is just here, that everyone probably experiences, and anything beyond that or anything apart from that is something that they don't know anything about or experience about. So they don't know how to help, or they don't know how to be involved, or they just don't see anything else but the only issues that they encounter. So I feel like it's very problematic.
Yeah, I was actually talking to one of my old colleagues about feminism, and she's from a completely different background. She's French, she's 45, and she said, I didn't know there was a difference in types of feminism, such as black and mainstream, up until recently. My idea of feminism, and when I think about feminism, I don't think about race, I just think women and equality. That's because women, all races, deal with inequality. Are white women ignorant, or is it just that they're not educated, or because they don't have to deal with it, it's just nothing to them?
I think it's because they don't have to deal with it. Black feminism, it stems from us as black women experiencing so many things, and now we're at the point where we're trying to talk about these things and make it known to people that this is what we're going through and this is what we're trying to make a change within our community. And as white women, they haven't faced certain things or gone through certain things, so they are just now talking about things that are on the surface, like what the quote that the Morgan person said. She's talking about the whiteness being a normal standard. They're just talking about normal things that happen to everybody, really, and that's why they think it's normal. It's whiteness. Whiteness is normal because it happens and it's an experience for everyone. They're not talking about things that happen within, deeper than the surface.
It's not even about whiteness. I think it's they don't actually see race because race is not something that resonates with them. They don't see themselves as white. They're a majority and all they see is the majority. It's not that they're being ignorant intentionally. I just feel like it completely goes over their heads because it's not something, like you said, it's not something they have to deal with. It's not something they have to think about. I feel like as black women and black feminists do need to take a responsibility to bring certain things to white people's attention. But with that being said, white people also need to take responsibility to be receptive to what black feminists are saying as well.
She also had another quote where she was saying, white people think that it is a compliment when they do not see you as a black person.
They don't see you as a stereotypical black person, and whatever that stereotypical or the connotations that come along with being a black woman or a black person, you're lucky if they don't see you as that, because every stereotypical thing that comes or connotation that comes along with that, majority of the time is negative. So if they don't see you along with those stereotypes, then to them you're pretty much similar to them and you're a better version of like a normal black person.
Someone that is white will never really understand. They may try and empathise with the issues that a black woman will go through, but they'll never really understand what it is to be a black woman. They can try and gain knowledge, but they will never know. All they can do is try and empathise with the struggles and things that we go through. So it is our responsibility to make sure that we are heard and we are putting ourselves out there. But I feel like it's also important how we go about this, that we don't perpetuate stereotypes, that we're angry, we're loud, we're brash. People in society, as well as white feminists, also need to take the time to sit down. They need to take the responsibility to sit down and be open to what we're saying and receive what we're saying, and support us, because that's what feminism is about, women supporting women. So whether we're white, black, brown, I feel like we all need to be supporting each other, and you could call this discrimination, positive discrimination, but I would say that black women may need that little bit more extra support than white women may need. So we really do need the support of other white feminists. As a black feminist, the black feminism as a movement, we need that little bit more
do you
extra
think
support.
like white women supporting us, you think that will make black feminism better, like our voice will be more heard?
100%, yeah.
That's the end of our first clip. In the next episode we'll be talking about, does black feminism help black women and how?